With Survivor 47 underway and the race for the crown continuing, I decided to look back at the 6 prior winners of Modern Survivor and rank them on my definitely not controversial criteria of gameplay replicability. Essentially how viable a contestant's game when replicated could lead to a win, and the soft skills they showcase that are transferable for successful strategies. As a result, at number 6 on this list I have the winner of Survivor 43, Mike Gabler. I like Mike, he seems like a great guy, and honestly I don't think any Modern Survivor winner is bad per se, so it's more so ranking bottom out of a list of strong competitors. Mike started off the game rocky, misplaying round 1, and relying on the threat of his idol plus shot in the dark to get the target off him. Baka then went on a winning streak, although if Gabler were to visit Tribal Council, he would have succeeded in being in the majority, with Sami ultimately swinging to their side. The Ellie merge move became Gabler's calling card, beginning the Ala Gabler motif, and it's something that, to his credit, he effectively uses at Final Tribal. He threw Ellie's name out to throw Ellie's name out. Gabler sinks back underwater, but establishes close bonds with most of the merged tribe, and especially Jesse plus Cody, where they create the Ride or Die alliance. Apparently this alliance was undersold in the edit, as Cody, Jesse and Gabler had all the power at the final 10 split tribal, and they were going to vote for either Cassidy or Ryan, depending on who was eliminated in the other split tribal, so they could dent the power structure. But really from that point on, Gabler takes a back seat, and while hiding your threat level is generally good on Modern Survivor, he really is overshadowed by Cody plus Jesse, who are more outgoing and making moves for their personal benefit. Mike Gabler was also non-existent in the endgame, with it really being Jesse controlling the narrative for both the final 6 and 5. Even at the final tribal, Mike struggles to admit he would have taken out both Cody and Jesse before the final 3, and he would have almost certainly lost to one of them at the end. While at the final 4 he does beat Jesse in fire making, and the jury gives him a lot of credit for this apparent big move, I personally would give just as much credit to Cassidy for actually winning final immunity, so Jesse couldn't obtain it. That being said, I do believe Mike deserved to win over Cassidy, as I think his positioning was more consistently strong than her, and like it or not, he is a single vote away from a perfect game. While I also have knocked on Gabler's answer about Cody and Jesse at the final 3, apart from that he does really well, and even successfully undercuts Cassidy in front of the jury. However, I feel if any of Cody, Carlo or Jesse make it to the end, Gabler loses quite bad honestly, so his game is a bit too inconsistent to leave at the bottom. Closely following Gabler is Maryanne, who is just an absolute wild card. Her start was completely different to Gabler, as she got quite unlucky losing Jackson after the first day, then the tribe had a per challenge matchup causing them to lose Mariah. I know a lot of people knocked Maryanne's game since she could have been the next to go, and to be fair, she would have, but you also have to remember Jackson got ejected. According to some Express, Jackson was searching for the idol too openly, sketching out his tribe, so Maryanne would have likely survived over him, thus making her higher on the pecking order than what we saw. At the merge, each tribe's majority came together to create this kind of giga majority, with Ika throwing out Tori, Vadi throwing out Chanel, and Taku reluctantly throwing out Maryanne. In spite of Chanel plus Tori winning immunity, Maryanne was never really considered a target despite being the supposed easy boot. Jonathan's name was brought up early, then Lydia's name got traction, although this is more so Omar's doing rather than Maryanne being proactive. She still receives 2 votes at this tribal, then gets blindsided at the Chanel tribal by instead voting for Romeo. For the next few rounds in the game, Maryanne is definitely there, but is more so overshadowed by Dre or Mike, plus Omar, who collaborate to outplay Dre's knowledge and power before taking her down. That being said, unlike Gabler, Maryanne rebounds really well by expertly using her extra vote, and its first successful use by understanding 2 votes would be on Romeo, 2 on Jonathan, and therefore they could put 3 votes on whoever they wanted, with the eventual target being the massive threat, Omar. Although apparently according to a certain podcast he wasn't like Don Ponderosa, but it's still this relationship with Romeo that allows Maryanne to flourish in the endgame, particularly at the final 4. Something I disagree with, however, is her helping the number 1 threat to win the game in Lindsay in the final 5 challenge advantage puzzle, because she could have been at worst 1 fire making challenge away from probably winning the game had she won final 5 immunity on the back of her advantage. Maryanne is also benefiting benefited by Mike Turner's poor performance at the final tribal council, since supposedly half the jurors were coming in intended to vote for him, although Maryanne still probably gets Romeo's vote on the tiebreaker. However, I still give credit to Maryanne by having a really good final tribal performance by contrast, allowing her to collect almost all the votes. That being said, while she finishes strong and has some moments of strong gameplay, I feel she sunk a little bit too much into the background, was largely near the bottom and had questionable logic in helping Lindsay, which leaves her here. This video is sponsored by idolplays, but before you skip the video, you little scallywag, I've came here to announce that on Friday the 29th, we will be cutting the price of all puzzles by 30% in one of the biggest Black Friday deals the Survivor community has seen. If you're a fan of the show and want to experience the puzzles for yourselves, I'd highly recommend buying my Bandit Bootcamp puzzle box, featuring some of the best puzzles on the store, like the log maze, Will It Go Around, and fire puzzle in a variety of colours, plus my own creator card. Check out the link in the description for this limited time bargain, and let's get back to the video. From one of the oldest modern winners to the newest, I have Kenzie at 4. Similar to Maryanne, she started on the quote-unquote underdog tribe, losing eventually, having to go to tribal back to back to back. Kenzie was never in danger of being voted out, but did face opposition by Banu at his boot round. Mind you, it is Banu. While she was never in danger of being eliminated pre-merge, because I think Tiff always picks her over Q, she was never in the best position. Then at the merge, she is solidly within the majority until the Hunter blindside. This blindside is odd, considering the edit really portrays it as a massive boon for Kenzie, but considering Hunter gets eliminated, while considering Kenzie is number 1, with Kenzie not being able to save him, it does present issues. Additionally, Hunter has revealed after the season, if anything, it was actually Tiffany that caused his blindside, because he expected her to vote with him, since she got into many personal arguments with Q. Kenzie then has the worst round for maybe any modern Survivor winner by losing Tiffany in a blindside she said she needed to create in order to fuel her resume. With momentum shifting to Maria plus Q, Kenzie was forced to eliminate Venus, but received a vote from Ben, meaning if Venus played her idol, she actually probably gets eliminated. Sure, Ben accidentally voted for her, but Q has stated postseason there was a legitimate split vote plan in operation on Kenzie this round, where he was supposed to vote for her but forgot. Whether or not you believe Q, Kenzie still objectively would have been put into a revote tiebreaker against Q if Venus had played her idol. However, after this, Kenzie plays pretty well by getting Charlie plus Ben to swing back to take out Q. She then beats Maria at the final 5 challenge, and still would have probably won without Liz's help. Then at the final 4 she is sent into fire making, but considering Ben and Charlie were super close, with a lot of their bonding not making the edit, it was always going to be an uphill battle for her safety. But more on the Ben and Charlie relationship later. Kenzie's final 3 is pretty darn strong, and it helped that coming into the finale she seemed to present herself within the game as the only serious one. Now, I believe Charlie should have won this season, a topic that I know is done to death, sorry, but I think he had far more agency than Kenzie at more pivotal portions of the game. That being said, one major knock for Charlie's game is that he doesn't have a single lock vote at the end, with the 3 votes he does get at this tribal flipping to him after his performance. While it is still impressive, he did lose the only 2 people in Venus and Q looking to vote for him coming into tribal council, while Kenzie had Tevin, Tiffany and Maria coming in to vote for her while leaving voting for her. Maria's vote is the most controversial, as it was largely based on emotions and is even speculated to be spiteful, and while I don't think relying on someone voting for you based on emotions is great, I have to respect the fact Kenzie effortlessly won Charlie's closest ally over against him. That being said, if a single additional person voted for Charlie, which was very likely, then we have a 4-4 tie where Ben confirms he votes Charlie in the tiebreaker because the two had an extremely close bond. So while I think Kenzie's game averages out better than Maryanne's, it still is a game with probably lower lows, and considering I would ultimately vote for Charlie over her, I still can't put her in the top half. Speaking of the top half, oh boy, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but it's time for the... wait. Where's my hourglass? Erika, no! Erika's game is really hard to judge, considering she was on Survivor 41, never went to a pre-mergatory tribal. She was on Survivor 41, she was extremely under-edited, and she was on Survivor 41. Erika was largely neglected in the edit, but when she popped up in episode 4, we were shown Deshawn wanting to throw the challenge to get her out, except Naseer came to her rescue by winning the challenge, thus showing Erika as a lucky winner. Then she got exiled while everyone back at camp was discussing the many ways they could vote her out, only to be saved by the hourglass, so she's a lucky winner, right? Well, the plan for Deshawn to vote out Erika has actually been debunked, as by the time of the challenge, he was actually planning to get Sydney voted out while blindsiding Danny. The people talking about voting Erika out at the Mergatory were obviously going to, since she was the only one not at camp. So apart from that, Erika plays the Mergatory plus Tiffany blindside well. She's not in the centre of attention, but solidly within the majority. That being said, while the pre-merge knocks against Erika are overblown, people seem to really forget about the final 10 round. Erika approaches Naseer, looking to flip him against Shan and Ricard, but he ultimately shuts down any conversation, which, while awful gameplay from Naseer, is really bad for Erika too, considering her and Heather spent the longest time with him, yet he trusts the Uas so much she won't even talk with them. Eventually Erika gets bailed out by Ricard, but this is more so because of him wanting Naseer with his idol gone, rather than her being proactive. Honestly, Erika's best move is at the final 8, utilising a split vote between Liana and Shan, which is extremely advantageous for her considering she's likely to get the votes, plus Shan has an idol. It's also really impressive when you realise it was in neither Danny, Deshawn or Ricard's best interest to actually keep Erika this round, as they had the numbers to split the vote at the final 7, while taking Erika as a threat out at the final 8. From that point on, Erika is greatly assisted by Ricard, being a bigger threat than her at the final 7, then the complete destruction of the Black Alliance at 6. At 5, Erika does get quite lucky. She finds the challenge advantage because Ricard definitely could have won that challenge, but considering she won the challenge off her own merit, I don't discredit her too much. Xander wins immunity but then brings her to the end of the final 4, which is stated by him as a play to not give her an extra move on her resume. People really bash on Xander, saying this is where he lost the game, but really he had already lost, and I imagine Erika's odds in a fire-making comp were pretty good anyway. Then at the final tribal, Erika has a consistently decent performance, while Deshawn and Xander have moments where they trip over their own words, awarding her with a near unanimous win. Erika is a big enigma considering 1/3 of her game is borderline unrankable, but apart from her blip at the final 10 and her getting targeted at the final 8, there's nothing I can hugely discredit her with. It's a largely good but not great Survivor game that has been overtaken since Survivor 41. One of these games that overtook her is Yam Yam's from Survivor 44, who, similar to Maryanne, unfortunately lost a tribe member early on in Bruce, but unlike her was never in any danger in the early game. Yam Yam got together with Carolyn, they flipped over Carson, then took out Helen. Even when screwed over by a largely BS twist, which took away Carson and replaced him with Josh, who had an idol, even then Sarah was the target of the idol. Although this introduces the first real problem for Yam Yam's game, in that he was never in the best positioned on his tribe. Carson was in the swing position at the tribe's first tribal, and upon the swap, Carolyn established that role since she voted with Josh at the 4th tribal. Don't get me wrong, Yam Yam was well positioned and does get out Josh at the Mergatory, and while he may have never been in the true power position, he was very similar to Tommy and IOI in the fact he kept getting thrown into awful situations and overcoming them. This was seen in the split tribal twist where Yam Yam was outnumbered 3-1-1 and Heidi got a controlling advantage, which was largely luck-based, although even with Lauren being forced to vote Yam Yam, he still survived by getting Matthew out. From that point on, Yam Yam was solidly in the majority, swinging between the original Ratu and Soka. While Danny tries to get together with Heidi, Lauren and Jamie to get out an original Tika, they're able to convince Lauren and Jamie to split on Danny plus Heidi. All this time I do knock Yam Yam's semi-consistent rhetoric of wanting Carolyn out, considering it's often that Carson Carson had to come to his aid and realign the take of 3. This is particularly concerning, considering Carlin is someone Yam Yam easily beats at the end and forms a fundamental part of his endgame plan. Carson also really rises to be the biggest threat of the Tikas by the endgame, meaning if he wins Final 4, he wins near unanimously, if not unanimously, considering the Final 3. Yam Yam by this stage wanted an old Tika Final 3, and was only stopped by Heidi winning Final Immunity, and then she took it upon herself to beat Carson. This then allows Yam Yam to earn the crown of the biggest threat by the Final 3, where he basically scoops up every vote Carson would have gotten. So while not a perfect starting game, it's a pretty darn solid one. He survives some really unlucky situations, and dominates the mid-game, only to be a bit too gun-ho on Carolyn, and maybe not enough when it comes to Carson. It's really hard to envision a modern Survivor winner as a top 10 winner in Survivor overall, because the new format is just so unbelievably dystopian to the pre-COVID era, but I've done some rough winner ranking lists for the 46 winners, and this person constantly gets between the top 15 and 10 range, because their game is actually really good, and that's Dee. On Dee's original tribe, they were part of the 4-person majority that also eventually went on to win the game. Dee got an unfortunate swap and controversially decided to keep Sean over Sifu, especially because Sean wanted to quit the subsequent tribal council. He also wrote down her name, but Sean claims in Express he did it because Dee was the safest in the game and didn't want to hurt anyone on the bottom. In spite of Sean essentially harming Dee's position by telling Sifu he didn't vote for him, Dee rebounds really well by convincing Sifu it wasn't her that voted for him, and forms such a strong all Reba girls bond with J Maya that transpired in her wanting to take the blame for voting Sifu, which she didn't even do. I know a lot of people say the Take of 3 were this unstoppable force, but I really feel the Reba 4 embody this more. They were extremely dominant, getting out threat after threat. Even Kelly in her boot round states in Express it was such a blindside because she had cultivated a strong relationship with Dee and perceived she would never turn on her. At the final 7 and 6, Dee separates her game from her showmance in Austin by telling Julie to play her idol on herself, allowing her to take out Emily, and then takes out Drew without even telling Austin. I know Dee's final 5 game gets a lot of flack, and yeah, it's not that great. Yeah, it's not great she was a target, but to give her credit, Dee is the wedge that forced Katurah and Jake to butt heads, so they were less likely to trust each other after the idol play. Really, for me, Dee's game is one of absolute dominance, and in an era with so many twists like Modern Survivor, she proved to have control of a lot of aspects in Survivor 45 while controlling who was eliminated where. Do you agree with my list, or would you have any other winners swapped? Let me know in the comments below. Check out this video for more spicy Survivor content, and peace!